I do want to say one more thing. I haven't reached out to T. I hope that he got some relief today, and I don't know. I saw some stuff on Twitter, and people should not be attacking him whatsoever. And I'm glad that Damar's family came out and said that, and hopefully he found some relief today, because again, that's a football play, and I hope that he doesn't hold that upon himself, because
unbelievable. People blaming T. Higgins. Unbelievable. They're blaming T. Higgins for the hit? I don't think so. Damar Hamlin is awake, and he is all there. This is interesting to see. Daily Sports Podcast, news, narratives, takes, gambling, etc. The University of Cincinnati Medical Center and school and whatnot had a press conference yesterday via video where Damar Hamlin's two attending physicians, one of whom is a trauma surgeon, the other of whom I think is crit care, I'm not sure. They held a joint press conference and answered questions for local and national media regarding the status of Damar Hamlin. The news is that he is awake. It's not one of those things where he's just in a coma and then, he wakes up. No, they woke him up. And the reason they woke him up is because his lungs were functioning and things were happening at a level that they were comfortable waking him up. So what that means is they turned down the sedation a little. He still is intubated, which means a tube is down his throat so that he can breathe. He's also getting nutrients that way, which does suck, but he's high. I would guess like Xanax and then also some sedation. So he's not all there. I highly doubt he remembers any of this. But the story yesterday was that when he was awoken, which I believe happened last night sometime, a bedside nurse, one of the floor nurses, and shouts to crit care and ED floor nurses and all of our floor nurses and all of our nurses out there, asked him, they just started communicating. Usually they have a pen and a paper there. And his first question was, did we win? And then they said the eye-rolling line, you won the game of life. The question, did we win, is actually incredibly important. It's super duper crazy important because it shows that not only is his brain working well enough to communicate with other human beings, he knows who he is, he knows where he is, he knows what's going on, he knows the last thing that happened before he passed out, which means that he had enough CPR quickly enough, and it was good CPR that allowed him complete brain function. He remembers what was going on. And he can do that while kind of sedated. So that is an amazing turn of events. The press conference yesterday, the point of it was, and I'm not going to put words into people's mouths, but having worked in medical media for a while, the point of the press conference was he's not going to die. If he dies from this, if the worst case scenario is realized, it will be months or years later. And they have no idea what caused it. They won't know that for a while, and even if they do, it won't be up to them to disclose it. It'll be up to him. He has rights. His rights are a little foggier because he's now famous or infamous than the average person, but that's kind of for the courts to decide. They'll never disclose, it was commotio cordis, it was an underlying heart condition. They'll never disclose that. It is against the law. So we won't know for quite some time. Journalists yesterday were asking dumb questions like, well, what does this mean? What's the road to recovery? So I'm going to help them understand. The press conference yesterday, asking what is this? What are next steps? Is like asking a 5-year-old what they're going to major in when they go to college. Right now, I'm trying to color inside the lines. He's alive, his brain works. The next step will be to get the breathing tube out of him. I mean, it'd be an enormous step if someone could order a pizza and he could feed himself pizza and have a normal conversation. That's the next step. Figuring out how his arms and legs work and all that. That's the next step. Just basically being a person. Because right now he's alive and he's awake and he's communicating via writing. So the point of the press conference would be yep, our two worst case scenarios are over. Worst case scenario number 1 is we can't fix the heart and the lungs and he dies. Worst case scenario number 2 is that we can keep him alive on machines, but his brain is completely broken and his family has to make a tough decision. Those are gone. That was the point of the press conference. We are off the ledge. He's going to live at least, who knows what's going to happen 6 months, 2 years from now. What's going on with him? Does he need whatever procedures? Is he sick? Who knows? He's still very sick. He's not great. He's not walking out of the hospital today, I would guess, but he's not. This is the worst case scenario has been avoided. We have avoided nuclear war, right? But if you want to use a metaphor. So that was the point of the press conference. Josh Allen and others have had to address the fact that T. Higgins is being blamed for the hit. It wasn't T. Higgins' fault, and I promise you that if this was commotio cordis and you hit someone in the chest, we've explained this, you could do the same thing to a random person. That is incredibly rare. It's also hard to prove, and everybody should just fuck off. Essentially, the vibe here is not that this wasn't necessarily because he was a football player. We have no idea what happened. No idea. So anybody blaming T. Higgins is, well, honestly, they don't know ball. They're soft and they don't know football. The NFL yesterday announced plans on how they're going to address the unfair advantage that could be gained by either the Bills, Bengals, or Chiefs here. So there is a plan for what to do for the playoffs. It is a little debated right now. Chiefs fans are complaining that the Bills don't have to play an extra game. They got a week off, essentially, which is the most chicken shit argument I've ever heard in my life. Chiefs fans low-key are a chicken shit fan base sometimes. They claim to be like this hunky-dory fan base. I think a lot of that has to do with Andy Reid being fat. But they really do that occasionally, and it is gross. I hate when they do that. I'm going to fix the screen here. So here's Tom Pelissero's tweet. There's a whole bunch of solutions. Essentially, they're looking at neutral sites. Scenario number 1, Buffalo and Kansas City both win or both tie. A Buffalo versus Kansas City championship game would be at a neutral site. Everyone is saying probably Indianapolis. Nobody's talked to the Colts. Detroit has been thrown around, obviously. Maybe they want them to play in cold weather. I don't know. We'll figure that out. It doesn't really matter at this point in time. So that's where we are with the Damar Hamlin situation. It's okay to go back to work now. Please, for the love of God, get signed up for CPR if you are not already. It's so simple. 7 minutes of CPR, which is incredibly physically taxing, could save someone's life. It could save their brain, and it's why his family didn't have to make a difficult decision. Okay. Yesterday, there were rumors that the NFL was considering adding an 8th seed to the AFC and NFC to make this fair, because they would have to add an 8th seed to the AFC so that nobody got a bye, because that's what was at stake with the Bills and the Bengals, and then the Chiefs were the other team in the little love triangle. Who was going to get the first-round bye? And because the game is going to be canceled now, or it's going to be, it's canceled. It's suspended indefinitely. They're never going to play. Because of that, there's kind of an unfair advantage situation for who gets the bye. There's so much at stake with the bye. Well, there was a rumor that the NFL was considering, just add an 8th seed. Well, that was never a rumor, which is annoying because me as a Lions fan, were like, oh, shit, the Packers and the Lions could both get in, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. The 8th seed will be added soon enough, I'm sure. So there's a solution in place. We'll see what happens. Let's get into some games this weekend. But before we do, a storyline that came out of Miami local media that's probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. There are thoughts and rumors that Mike McDaniel, the first-year head coach for the Miami Dolphins, could be on the hot seat. All of these rumors have to do with either the Dolphins being a blatantly incompetent organization or the fact that they're trying to tamper and get Sean Payton or somebody else, maybe Jim Harbaugh to coach there. They definitely wanted Jim Harbaugh. That was part of this. They wanted Jim Harbaugh. Remember, the owner of the Miami Dolphins is a mega booster of Michigan, which is why he wanted Brady also. So that's what he would want. So I'm sure that they would want Harbaugh. I'm sure he would want to go there. I'm sure that's a thing. The Dolphins were considered the best team in the NFL for a while there. Their quarterback keeps getting concussed. If their quarterback was completely healthy the entire season, they probably win 10 games maybe. And not only that, but their backup keeps getting hurt. Their backup, they have one of the best backups in the league in Teddy Bridgewater. He keeps getting hurt. So it's looking like they could finish below 500. I don't know exactly what their record is. It doesn't matter. But there are reports that Mike McDaniel, this little nerdy head coach, could get fired. Holy shit, the stupidity of that. Coach is on the hot seat this weekend. Lovie Smith is on the hot seat. 1, because the Texans suck. 2, because he's black. I'm just going to say it. Houston does not have a great record. They don't. They, of course, sacrificed David Culley last year, black head coach who I believe was a special teams coordinator for the Ravens. And now Lovie Smith is the guy there that his job was to tank. They're going to tank, I promise. So let's start right there with the Texans. The Texans have 1 win, I think. Do they? They might have 2 wins. Do they? No way. They haven't been paying attention. Did the Houston Texans have 2 wins? Shut up. Who'd they beat? I totally forgot they had 2 wins. Anyway, they're 2-13-1, which is interesting because the Colts are 4-11-1. That's interesting because they're playing each other right now. That means they both suck a lot. We're going to see Jared Stidham versus Davis Mills or somebody else. Who knows? What's at stake there is the number 1 overall pick because the Chicago Bears, they suck. And if the Houston Texans win this game, even though they'll have the same amount of wins, assuming that the Bears lose to the Vikings, which who knows, then the Bears would have the first overall pick because the Texans, despite having as many losses or as many wins, they have fewer losses because there's a tie. So that ties screw everything up in an insane way. Just like the New York Giants tying the Commanders is why the Lions might miss the playoffs. So Texans, Colts, interesting. Got a lot of draft ramifications there. And I fully expect Lovie Smith, who was essentially hired as a sacrificial lamb, I fully expect him to just complete the tank. I think he's done a good job. We'll see if Lovie can prioritize offense in the offseason, and we'll see what the Texans can do, but he's absolutely on the hot seat. Other coaches on the hot seat, Cliff Kingsbury, people think he'll be fired. I don't know. They just extended him. The GM may have been screwing around in Mexico with someone. Who knows? The Panthers organization is an absolute mess. People are suggesting Ron Rivera's on the hot seat, which would be fascinating. I think he might retire. But what a exhausting situation Washington has become. The one thing is, Washington, with an ownership change coming up, I don't know. Will new owners want to pay two coaches, or will they care? The Waltons, who just bought the Broncos, they don't care about paying two coaches. They have more money than God. The Commanders announced that they're going to start fifth-round rookie quarterback Sam Howell yesterday. That's an interesting situation to keep an eye on. A lot is at stake in both the AFC and NFC. So for the first time in a long time, pretty much every game matters. Not all of the games matter, but most of them matter. For example, the Giants and the Eagles matters. Ironically, the Eagles have to play hard if they're trying to get the number 1 seed, and the Giants are resting starters. They're in the playoffs, but they can't really gain anything. It looks like they're going to go to either Minnesota or San Francisco. Right now, San Francisco has the 2 seed. Minnesota has the 3 seed after Minnesota got embarrassed by the Packers. So we're just going through scenarios right now. The Rams and the Seahawks are playing. If the Seahawks win, then they need the Lions to win to get in the playoffs. They need to win and get help. The Lions need the Rams to beat the Seahawks, and they need to beat the Packers. They need help. The Packers are the only team right now that are win and in. This does seem like a job for Baker Mayfield. This is exactly the kind of thing that makes people hate him. You love to see it. The Niners are playing the Cardinals. The Niners have incentive to win. The Cardinals have incentive to stay healthy. The Bucs are resting starters against the Falcons. The Falcons will win that game. So let's get into some gambling here. I did want to note that sports books like Barstool Sports and others, they're not the only ones, are tweeting out player incentives. So as the season wraps up, a lot of players who haven't hit incentives for things like yards, catches, touchdowns, whatever, they have $250,000 on the line for a bonus. For example, Kenny Golladay needs 76 catches on Sunday to get $750,000. It's $10,000 a catch, bud. Wait, no, it's $100,000 a catch. No, 10,000. 10 times 70. Shh. But they're tweeting these out because a lot of times these incentives for teams that are trying to make the playoffs, the teams don't give a shit. If they have a good quarterback and they're already in, quarterbacks will help out receivers or running backs get these incentives. However, the team, the players, nobody really gives a shit about this. I promise. It's one of the crazier things that sportsbooks do because they're trying to get you to bet on the stuff. So here, if I pull it up on TikTok, here's a TikTok of a guy talking over a Barstool Sports thing. So, for example, Justin Fields needs 64 rushing yards to set an NFL record for most rushing yards in a season by a quarterback. They've already said they're not playing him. They're shutting him down. Justin Jefferson needs 184 receiving yards to set the NFL record for most receiving yards in a season, which, by the way, side note, people thought that he might break Calvin Johnson's record, Tyreek Hill. He is 184 yards short, which he has gotten a couple times in his career. Johnson did it in less games. Fucking crazy. Mahomes needs 425 passing yards to set the NFL record for most passing yards in a season. Zay Jones needs 2 receptions to make $250,000 and 86 receiving yards to make $500,000. These sports books want you to bet for these things to happen. They want you to bet the overs. Unders on individual shit hits. Don't fall for it. Okay, let's get into our gambling preview of the final week of the season. The reason I find this interesting is because exactly what we just discussed. There's a lot of weird incentive stuff going around. I have a lot of favorites this weekend. I think the Colts are going to beat the Texans because I think the Colts have Jeff Saturday. He's trying to prove himself, and they don't understand the assignment. The Texans understand that they're tanking for Bryce Young or Will Anderson or whoever. They're going to tank. The Bengals, they're 7.5-point favorites at home over the Ravens. The Ravens are going to rest people / Lamar. Are they going to rest people? I don't know, but they can't win the division, I don't think, and Lamar Jackson's not playing. So I fully expect the Bengals to absolutely annihilate the Ravens. The only thing is, are they going to be emotionally hungover after the Damar Hamlin situation, which would be intense. Other best bets that I have, I like the Falcons to cover over the Bucs. The Bucs are 4.5-point underdogs on the road against the Falcons. The Bucs are going to be resting people. The Falcons are going to be trying to finish hard, which I like, and I respect that kind of thing. It's what the Lions did last year. It's what the Jaguars did last year. Speaking of the Jaguars, the AFC South Championship game, which will be played in primetime on Saturday night between the Titans and the Jags. Jags are favored by 6.5. They're going to destroy the Titans. Playing Josh Dobbs. The Titans are grinding to a halt. There's internal turmoil Mike Vrabel's still mad at the GM that got fired. So I kind of see how that's how that's going to go for me. The Panthers, I think, are still going to play hard. Saw the Bears. They were tanking against the Lions. A lot of guys made business decisions last week, but I think the Panthers are going to play hard. So I think the Panthers might cover, they might cover 3.5 against the Saints. The Patriots are going on the road to Buffalo in what will be emotional. I like the Patriots to cover there. It's just going to be so emotional. How can you shake this from your memory? How can you have a good week of practice? So who knows? I mean, I just don't think that's going to be a good situation. The Eagles are 14-point favorites over the Giants. The Giants are resting starters. Seahawks 6-point favorites over the Rams. The Rams are going to play spoiler. I think they will. I don't think the Seahawks are good. Chargers and Broncos, don't care about that game. Cardinals are 14-point dogs to the Niners. Don't care about that game. Cowboys 7-point favorites over the Commanders. Don't care about that game. The Cowboys need to win, and if the Eagles lose and some other people lose, the Cowboys could still get the 1 seed. So they need to win. The Commanders are starting a rookie, which is great to get him some snaps, but Micah Parsons over there. And the Lions are 4.5-point underdogs to the Packers. I like the Lions to cover, but I don't like the Lions to win, even though they're my team. It's going to be like 24 degrees at kickoff. Jared Goff is from California, and I know that Aaron Rodgers is from California. He's been in Green Bay for like 20 years or whatever. Goff sucks in the cold. And the Packers are just, frankly, a better overall football team. The Lions' offense is better than the Packers' offense, but the Packers' defense is significantly better than the Lions' defense, and that kind of thing matters. I will say, I am on this take, and if I could bet legally in the state of North Carolina, I would. If the Seahawks win and eliminate the Lions from the playoffs in the 4 p.m. window, I fully expect, nay, guarantee, that the Lions will win by a big margin over the Packers. If you're playing loose, I think that's what's going to happen. I really do. University of Michigan is under investigation by the NCAA for recruiting infractions that they committed during the COVID period. Color me shocked as Jim Harbaugh makes his way out of town. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Shouts to the medical team that took care of Damar Hamlin. Get CPR certified. I'll be back and better than ever on Monday morning. Bye.